Everyone we know, from the highest to the lowest, the biggest to the smallest, the greatest and the worst, we're all going to die. I myself found that I couldn't escape it. From a very young age, I had an extreme fear of death for no real reason I could point at. I wasn't really touched by death. I didn't lose any close family members or anything like that, but for some reason I was aware of death, and I pretty much thought about it every single day since I was like 8 years old. And it kind of got worse as I got older, and like when I was in my early 20s, you know, some of my hair fell out, had a gray hair or two, some of my teeth weren't perfect, and I realized, okay, this is really happening. Like, this process of decay is taking place, and this machine is not going to last forever. And so I always wanted to know, how can I possibly get over this fear? To obsess over this does very little for me, because the fear was truly fear in such a way that it wasn't helping me actually live my life to the fullest. And strangely, what pulled me out of my fear of death was my best friend nearly dying. I won't get into the details, but essentially went into a coma, and it looked very, very bad for a very long time. And I was just sort of watching this happen and just thinking I was going to lose him, and thinking, man, another young guy in his 20s can just go. One day, we were out having fun. The next day, all that happened. And then it was months and months of not knowing what was going to happen. And during those months of waiting and of kind of watching my friend be on the edge between life and death, a switch occurred. And the switch that took place in me is, I think, the best I could have hoped for. Because honestly, I don't think I can get rid of the fact that I'm somewhat of a morbid person. For whatever reason, I think about these big concepts, the heat death of the universe, my own death, the fact that we don't know if we're alone in the universe. These things bother me on a day-to-day basis. I just am that way. I am that guy. But what we can do is reframe these questions in a way that it's actually helpful and emotionally energizing for us. And the way this happened when I was watching my friend go through this was by switching from fear of death, from running away from death, from seeing this black wall somewhere in the distance that I'm running towards, whether I like it or not, and I'm going to vanish into, to simply a desperation to live. Thinking about my friend in his early 20s who had made so many plans, had so many things he hadn't done yet, and realizing all of that could be taken away from him. Instead of a fear, I was gifted a desperation to live every single day as if it were my last. And I know that's a cliche, but when your best friend is in a coma, it's no longer a cliche. And I was waking up at 5 a.m. writing, because that was my dream at that time. I was going to school where I worked and giving everything to the kids I was working with, absolutely everything, because I wanted all of them to remember me. I wanted us to have had this experience and to have squeezed out everything from our classes that we could have. And just like that, it was reframed. And what I got instead of fear was a desperation, a thirst for life. Now the question is, how is this actionable for you? None of us want to have to learn this by one of our friends getting sick. Well, what you can do is face death, not necessarily in your personal life, if you don't have to, but with people around the world and in history that went through this. Read about the people in the past who would lose like 1 out of every 3 or 5 kids. Learn about the Mongols leveling a city, killing everyone inside. Learn about the fact that people who were so promising at 21, 22 years old, people that might have been the next Mozarts, had their lives taken for no good reason. And what this is going to do is, instead of making you sort of childishly just, oh my God, I hope I don't die, I'm afraid, it's going to make you realize that yes, this is coming. What you can avoid is not death, but a life not fully lived. That we can prevent, because one great day lived is redeeming. Even if you've been slacking off your whole life, taking everything for granted, staying inside, watching TV, not being your true self, not giving your gifts to the world, if you start tomorrow to live authentically, to live as you should, to live like the best you can be, meaning giving all your gifts, being vulnerable, taking risks, putting yourself out there energetically and squeezing everything out of your body and your mind that you can, well, then you're redeemed. A single day fixes you. And this is almost, in my opinion, this working the same way as the Christian salvation idea does, where a single moment of you saying, I'm going to live as I can, as I should, without the fear of death, but the desperation to live and live as best as I can, well, then you're instantly redeemed. You don't need to worry about the fact that you wasted time in the past. You can have this awakening at 35 or 40 or 50 or 80 or 90 or 100. It doesn't matter. All that the universe wants from you is the realization that this life is a gift and that there are things you could do with it that would redeem the fact that all of us are going to sadly go away one day. That's all.